YouTube, it's Janet, and today I'm here with my Spookathon Wrap Up. The Spookathon took place between the 17th and the 23rd of October this year, and there were 5 challenges, and so I'll just let you know how I got on. So one of the challenges... Come on then! Come on if you're coming in! Come on! It's better than crying outside. Come on! So one of the challenges was to read a book with red on the cover, and I chose the graphic novel Nail-Biter Volume 1. This is by Joshua Williamson, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's quite dark, it's very grisly, and it's set in Buckaroo, Oregon, a small town where I think it's 16 out of 23 of the most notorious serial killers ever have come from. And the investigation that's going into this sort of phenomena. Nail-Biter is one of these serial killers who has actually got away with his crimes, and what he likes to do is bite the nails of his victims right down to the knuckles and then kills them. So really enjoyed it actually, although it is quite grisly and dark. As you can see, sort of like the artwork itself is quite a dark, gloomy colour palette, but it is fabulously moody and atmospheric as you're reading it, so I'm definitely going to be carrying on with the series. So that was that one. The next one was to read a book with a spooky word in the title, and I read The Death House by Sarah Pinborough, and I suppose you can't get much more spooky than the word death in the title. And I wouldn't say this book was a YA book, but it's certainly a new adult book, and it's set in the UK, and teenagers have to have routine blood tests in school up to a certain age. I think it's like just, you know, when they get to adulthood, and then everything seems to be fine, because there is some sort of strange disease, or we don't really know what it is, some sort of illness or disorder that manifests itself before they reach adulthood. And if the blood tests show that they've got this sort of gene that's going to predispose them to this, they are just whisked away to an island where they are kept under sort of strict observation by nurses to look for any symptoms and signs of this illness developing. But it seems to develop differently in every single person, so there's no sort of definitive disease path for it. But if you do start to show symptoms, you're taken to the top floor of this like old crumbling mansion, and that's the sanitarium, and that's where they call it the death house, and nobody ever returns from that. And this is the story of a boy, Toby, and his sort of experience in this sanitarium, and things change when a new girl arrives, and I don't really want to give too much away other than that. It's quite dark, it's quite sinister, it's very... you do get an overwhelming feeling of loneliness with this book, but I thoroughly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I absolutely flew through it. It's one of those that leaves you thinking once you've put it down, and it stays in your mind about what is going on, what's behind all this. So yeah, I absolutely recommend. If you want a good page turner with a dark, sinister twist, then I recommend The Death House by Sarah Pinborough. The next challenge was to read a book with a paranormal creature or characters in it, and so I chose Strangers, and that's by Taichi Yamada, and this is translated from the Japanese. And it follows the main character, and he's a middle-aged divorced man, and he writes screenplays for television programs, and he seems to live and work in his office, which is actually part of an office building where after sort of 5 o'clock everybody disappears, and so he's pretty much the only person in that building. And he is quite a lonely, isolated character. His parents died in a car crash when he was quite young, and obviously he's divorced, he's a bit estranged from his son as well, who seems to just be off doing his own thing, so you do get an overwhelming sense of loneliness. However, things do change when two events happen, and one of them is when he realises there's actually somebody else living in his building, a woman with red hair. And also he also at the time gets the urge to go back to the town on the sort of suburbs of Tokyo where he grew up, and he goes into a theatre there, and he notices sitting near him a man who looks like his father, but his father when he died at the age of 35, so he's actually younger than him. And he leaves the theatre, and the man approaches him and says, "Oh, come home for a drink." And there's his mother as she was when she died, and he's finding it all a bit strange but very comforting because they are treating him like a son even though he's older than them. Anyway, it does transpire that they are his parents, but obviously this is a ghost story. It's quite eerie, it's quite it's a really clever idea. I can't give any more away than that. It's only a short book, so I think I read this in a couple of sittings, but it's really worth reading. It's actually very clever, and you do get that sort of... I can't say that it's got, you know, standout spooky, scare the bejesus out of your moments, but there's definitely something eerie and isolating and just sinister, one where you want to just keep looking over your shoulder as you're reading this. So yeah, so recommend that one. That's a good read, particularly for Halloween coming up. The next challenge was to read a book released in 2016, and I chose The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. Now, I've only got halfway through this, but I'm really pleased that for the Spookathon I have actually read 3.5 books. I'm finding it okay. I can't say I'm loving it, but I'm liking it. It's quite slow and it's a bit ploddy. I'm thinking now that I'm halfway through it's going to start picking up really. It's set in the Victorian era, and it follows Cora, who's recently widowed, but she's not that disappointed to be widowed because her husband was a bit of a git. And she moves to Colchester in Essex with her son, who probably these days would be said he was on the autistic spectrum. He's quite a precocious, bright child, but he's not quite the same as everybody else. And Cora forms a friendship with the local reverend, and they share an interest in natural history because the town that they are in, there is this mythical creature, the Essex Serpent, which is believed to come and eat people and take them away. And so it's quite slow, it's quite ploddy, but I think this first half is just setting the scene, and it's like, well, does it exist, does it not? Cora thinks it might be an undiscovered creature that, you know, needs categorising and looking into, whereas other people in the town think it is this mythical beast. And so I'll just quite keen to see where it goes. And the final challenge, which I didn't actually manage to get to, was to read a thriller, and I had chosen The Damage Done by James Oswald, and that's the 6th one in the Inspector Tony McLean series set in Edinburgh. I will be definitely reading this one soon because I absolutely love this series of books, but it was quite a big one and just didn't get time to do it. So that was what I read for the Spookathon. Let me know if you've read any of these or how you got on, if you took part, what did you read. Keep reading. Bye!